Hey, what's up? It's your man Sean Zittel. Just wrapped up a massive live here at the house. Had about 1,500 people in there. It was a great night of boxing. Let's get started with the reaction to the full card. But let's start with Norman Haney, the fight I was most vocal about, most excited about, and picked incorrectly. As Devin Haney now, at 27, I think has cemented himself as a Hall of Famer now. 3 division champion, 6 belts all together, and now beats the #1 welterweight in Brian Norman. And let's start with it. For him to hook with the hooker after all the talk about the left hook and drop and almost knock out Brian Norman in the second round with a left hook is a beautiful bit of poetic irony for Devin Haney, who, again, was the most lambasted and hated on fighter for 18 months. And for him to persevere through these last 18 months, the aftermath of Garcia, the social media stuff, Ramirez not looking good in dominating points-wise against Jose Ramirez. And for him, I said before this fight, if he could pull this off, that he would not only be back where he was before the Garcia fight, and then some, and then higher than ever. And I think he's more respected now in the boxing world than he ever has. And again, I think he's a Hall of Famer at 27. So let's get to the fight. Norman had a very good first round. He concluded that round kind of buckling Haney with his jab to conclude the round. He got off first from the outset. His jab looked good, even though it was missing 99% of the time. But it was a good jab. It just couldn't find a home. Haney was a step or two ahead of him. And then in round 2, more the same. And then it comes the moment. What was supposed to be Brian Norman's calling card was his timing and his left hook. And instead, it's Devin Haney who times him with a perfect left hook and then follows it up, punches off another left hook, and then sweeps his right hand, drops Norman. And really, maybe there's a chance Haney could have ended this fight in the second round or ended this fight in the first half. But, armed with the experience of the Garcia fight, and that's who his natural temperament is. That's why he comes from the Floyd Mayweather school. You just win. You get the job done by any means. And you don't take chance. If there's any risk in going for the knockout, then you just avoid the risk and you win the fight. And that's what Haney did. And Haney, his up jab was money in this fight. We remember Larry Holmes having his left hand cocked at his waist. And in breaking down this fight, we broke down how good Haney's feints are and how they were superior to Norman's. But he could land the up jab at will. His volume wasn't there. But anytime he threw the up jab, he basically landed it. He hurt Norman in the first half of the fight with a 1-2. And then in 7, 8, 9, he thought about planting his feet in the 7th and maybe getting him out of there. But Norman's timing was still there. He's still determined, still dangerous. And so Devin said, no, let's just keep doing what's working. Let's stick with the game plan and go home with a lopsided win. Down the stretch of the fight, his volume did taper off. Every time Norman got close, he tied up. But that was good tactics by him. And the narrative I'm pushing is just that Devin Haney did it, man. He beat the #1 welterweight in his first fight at 147. The up jab was money whenever he wanted it. He probably could have pushed on the gas a little bit more, but again, against a dangerous puncher with good timing in Brian Norman, why give him his only chance to get himself back in the fight? So Haney dominates wide. Norman was determined. The only disappointment in Norman really was in the last 2 rounds when he obliged he was holding as much as Haney was, because Norman, like in the Randall fight, it showed up again. He doesn't have a good sense of distance. And there was a number of times he had these futile flurries with Haney on the ropes, almost like he knew it wasn't going to land. He didn't know what's a place where. He still had that bad habit of jumping in with shots, and I think he could have been a little bit more effective but that's why Haney said this experience is going to hurt you in this fight, because with better experience, he might have just stayed behind the jab, even when it's not landing, be consistent with it, step around and try to cut the ring off instead of jumping in with shots. But there was just no beating Devin Haney for Brian Norman tonight. And shout out to Brian Norman, still just an awesome guy. The big problem for him, some of the technical stuff can be smoothed out and to an extent. The big problem for Brian is he's chinny. He doesn't have a good chin, it would appear. And although Haney's power is better at 147, he showed an improvement across the board at 47. Still, I see what everyone's saying on social media. Down the stretch, took his foot off the gas in the clinching, but it was a great performance. And a lot of people thought not only was he going to get knocked out in this fight, but that this could be the end of Devin Haney and all that. So my salute to Team Haney, to Bill Haney, who was quiet in this lead up. And some of us took that as a little less bravado and confidence out of Bill. But instead, he wanted his son to do all the talking in the ring, and he did. So Haney now is the #1 welterweight in the world. And now, a fight between him and Garcia, if Garcia can win in February, is like a cosmic stakes fight, because they could have both lost to Brian Norman and Mario Barrios, and a lot of people would be interested in them fighting again because the human element, the human drama between them. Now you got Haney as the #1 welterweight in the world, and if Brian Norman, or excuse me, if Ryan Garcia can beat Mario Barrios, which a lot of people are going to pick him to win that fight, now not only is that the rematch with the PED drama and all the storylines and all the venom between them, but now it would be a welterweight unification for the legitimate welterweight, lineal unified title. So now, if Garcia handles his business in February, that becomes the biggest fight in boxing. And, what a script it'd be for Haney to run that back and win it. So massive respect to Haney, proves he's an elite fighter. And again, to me, a Hall of Famer at 27. Shout out to Brian Norman. Still like Brian Norman a lot. The problem for him is going to be, he doesn't really have the frame to move up to 54. Those guys are longer than him and bigger than him. And his chin isn't the best at 147. So that's going to be an even bigger issue at 154. But fun fighter, good fighter. We'll see what he comes up with next. So I tip my hat and eat my crow to Team Haney. Now, for the rest of the card, which thankfully I got right. I did technically go 3 out of 4, people. But the big one, they were all fights with heavy favorites. Mason was heavily favored. Bam was heavily favored. Benavidez was heavily favored. So those were gimmies. I missed the 50-50. Anyways, that's enough for my crow. Benavidez closed the show well. I think he's a favorite over Beterbiev and an underdog against Bivol. Styles make fights. Beterbiev letting Benavidez for the most part, and I know Beterbiev in his best day, like he did against Joe Smith, can turn you, even with all that freakish punch and power and the volume and all that. But he also had really good feet. And his feet were still good, even losing to Bivol in the rematch. But at 41 years old, still at the end of the day, more of an aggressive fighter than a guy who's just going to turn you and outbox you. He's going to take the fight to Benavidez. And I think, again, it's fair to say at 28 years old against, wait a minute. Why am I saying this? David Benavidez is moving up to cruiserweight, which kind of fucking sucks because nobody's asking for the Zittel fight. We know what's going to happen. He'll move up. He'll win 2 belts at cruiserweight, 3-division champ, and all that. And that's good. And the Jai Opetaia fight has substance. That's a very difficult fight. Benavidez would prove a lot to purists in the game, real boxing heads, if he could beat Opetaia. People rate Opetaia. He's the best cruiserweight in the world. But it's not a big fight. And Benavidez was ducked by Canelo at 68. And then, Bivol and the WBC has no consistency. They let Benavidez be ducked by Canelo for like 3 years and then gave Bivol 2 months after the Beterbiev fight and said, we're going to strip you. So, I do wish Bivol would have given Benavidez the fight. I've been saying that was the fight at light heavyweight, not a trilogy with Beterbiev. But the champion was fresh off the fight, 3 months out of the ring, and had an injury. And the WBC has no consistency. So Bivol gets, a pass, but Canelo ducked him. And it just sucks that this guy might be the best light heavyweight and maybe was the best super middleweight in the world. I definitely think he was the best super middleweight in the world, and just never got the opportunity. That sucks. And but for the fight itself, Benavidez, Yarde this was like the Beterbiev fight for Yarde. He starts off the first 2 rounds sharp and very textbook, giving his best Floyd Mayweather look, but not being extra. Just having an educated jab and giving good, smart angles, and just letting the fight come to him and fighting a good fight. And then at the end of the second round, or maybe early in the third round against Beterbiev, he got cute, is the best way I could describe it. And then midway through the third round against Benavidez, same thing. He starts getting cute. All of a sudden, maybe it's a conditioning thing, I don't know, but he was boxing well, and then he stopped sitting down on any punches. Then he just starts touching and tapping, and of course we know it's fine to poke and probe and touch to set up heavier shots, but he literally just starts throwing everything like that. And then Benavidez started getting him from rope to rope and has amazing combinations, as we all know, in offensive arsenal. Benavidez still showed good looks, shifting his upper body on the front foot. But if you make him pick his feet up, he becomes he for the most part, he can only get his best work done against the ropes, against guys that are going to make him pick his feet up in the center of the ring. And that's what you think Bivol would do. Even against Opetaya, that'll be interesting to see how he puts up with that. But Benavidez is elite. His reflexes on defense, they're underrated. He has different defensive looks, not just some high guard plotter. He has different defensive looks. He shifts his upper body and still, to me, is elite. And, you know, if he had the opportunity, Bivol deserves to be the logical favorite. And I think Benavidez would deserve at the age difference to be the logical favorite over Artur Beterbiev. But it's just a shame, because I highly doubt he can get back down from cruiserweight. He believes he can, though. In the past, he said that. So maybe he can, but, you know, you just got to think about the Roy Jones thing. When do guys ever really move back down at these higher weights? But Benavidez gets an A. This is his first stoppage at light heavyweight, so that narrative's dead. He got a stoppage there. He's an accumulation puncher, not a one-punch guy, but, you know, that fight with Bivol, it's like, you think about it, Canelo was able to cut the gap at times and get Bivol to the ropes, at least early. But, you'd have to favor Bivol. But Benavidez will be the definition. There's dogs barking in the hood. Benavidez will be the definition of a live dog in the Benavidez fight. A lot of people will be putting money on Benavidez. But it looks like we're not going to see it. So, instead, cruiserweight with Zittel, you got to favor. I think they're talking about Cinco de Mayo for that next year. You know, so he's going to go back here to Vegas with PBC, make a Zittel fight. It'll be fun to watch. I definitely picked Benavidez, even without seeing him at cruiserweight. But Zittel's a good champion, but he's not elite. And that's the level Benavidez has been forced to fight at. The good opponents, but not getting the elite guys. So it'll be a third division. It'll be another title, but it's disappointing. And I think a lot of people agree with that. Now on to the other two fights, which were the best fights of the night. Bam Rodriguez, not a TKO, a pull counter left-hand knockout shot against Puma Martinez, who I feel like he was almost tenderizing and playing with his food at times. It felt like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not giving Martinez enough credit. And maybe as amazing as Bam is, I'm even overestimating him a little bit. But part of me felt like he was taking joy in prolonging the inevitable because of what Martinez tugged on Superman's cape. But we know, to sum it up about Bam, first of all, his defense was incredible tonight. And I said before the ring, the man's an artist in the ring. He paints masterpieces. He did. He painted another masterpiece. And it's straight artistry in the ring. The defense was sick. The pull counter, left-hand knockout, that's from like Black American boxing, okay? Some of the defensive looks is from Black American boxing, but the pivoting and all that, he says that's from Lomachenko. And then when it's time to punch, he punches with the conviction of a Mexican fighter. That's when that Mexican blood shows, and the aggressiveness, the willing to want to always stay in the pocket. But what's so impressive about what Bam's defense was tonight was it was in the pocket. He got touched at times, but for the most part, if Puma was throwing 10 punches, Bam was slipping and blocking 8. And it was beautiful exhibition of defensive skills, upper body movement, feet, catching on the gloves, glove positioning, parrying, counter punching, finding what you want off your jab, body shots, changing speed and tempo and angles on everything. I mean, the man to me is easily now a top 5 pound for pound. We know the top 4 are solidified: Crawford and Usyk and Inoue and Bivol. I think he's just as cemented at number 5 now. The man is special, and is growing as a star. Even though he's a 115 pounder, he's got his own little aura, as the kids say it. And at 25, he says he wants to retire at 30. Reminds me of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with that a little bit. Shai Gilgeous was saying, I don't really want to play forever. I want to reach my peak, reach my potential, and then shortly thereafter kind of call it a career. And that sounds like kind of what Bam's on. I'm here to pack in a lot of quality and not have to fight well into my 30s and all that. I like that idea by him. He's on a path towards getting all the meaningful stuff accomplished by then anyways. So salute to Bam Rodriguez, an artist in the ring. Abdullah Mason, man, that was, in terms of two-way action, competitive fight, that was the fight of the night, was Mason and Noakes. Shout out to Sam Noakes, man. I thought our American guy would stop him. Not because Noakes isn't good, but I'm like, you're in there, you know, with like talent-wise, speed, power-wise, you know, a young phenom at 21. But Noakes, 28 years old, had that experience, he kept his defense compact and fundamentally sound and tight. Elbows in, hands up, and his timing was impressive. There were a number of times it felt like Mason, who still kind of jabs with his chin up and has a lot of these holes in his game, but ultimately made up for it with that speed power combo. But then the ingredient that we knew from the Vasquez fight that shined through at a championship level tonight, that right there, that heart from Abdullah Mason, that character in the ring, carried him through a war. And eventually it became, you're just not going to outbox this guy. And it's really close. He's outworking you. And in a lot of the rounds where you haven't hurt him, like in the 3rd or the 6th or the 10th, he's winning those rounds. He's outworking you. So to be safe, Mason knew, and I said it while I was watching the fight, he needs a crescendo. He needs one of those 3rd, 6th, 10th round bursts where he hurts this guy, and he produced it. He emptied the clip. Noakes punched with him and gave good work as well the entire fight and in the 12th, but Mason pulled it out. Now, the critique is, man, some of that stuff looked rough in there. You know, you could watch the tape and you'll see it, openings, holes, but he found a way to win, and his nerves were all over the place. His dad had to stand him up after the first round and calm him down because Noakes is a 28-year-old grown-ass man who came with confidence, power, and timing and a game plan that he actually executed pretty well. It's just the young, talented Abdullah Mason found a way to win. And now if I can hype it up, Abdullah Mason, 74-inch reach. Terrence Crawford, 74-inch reach. Terrence Crawford, first world title won, the WBO lightweight championship. Abdullah Mason, first lightweight title won, the WBO lightweight championship. Southpaw. You know, great at punching in between punches. Both from the Midwest. Both do their talking in the ring more than they like to do their talking outside the ring. But if he's ever going to be a Terrence Crawford, something like that, I mean, now Terrence is one of the greatest fighters of all time, so that's ridiculous expectations to put on any 21-year-old. But if he's going to reach anywhere near it, he's got a lot of stuff he's got to shore up. And one thing that's a challenge for him in his career is it's a green corner. Him and his father and his brothers, I love them being all together, but they're green in the corner. And Mason overcame that despite. But how much can the team Mason improve on the holes in his game, given that green experience at the championship level? It'll be fun to watch. But at 21, you know, this wasn't, to put it in perspective, he's younger than some of the other guys that have won their first title over the years than when they won it. And he did it, I think, against a more quality opponent. So that's part of why he didn't have his, you know, top-ranked WBO first title whitewash. He was in with a guy with a real pulse who really came to win, who had power and timing and a good game plan that he executed. That's why he had to go to the deepest waters to pull it out in the end. But that's going to make him probably better in the long run. So that's it for now. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And I want to get better in 2026. So we're almost done with 2025. Keep it locked in on the channel. Peace.